Welcome to the Design Thinking lecture. This is lecture 7. It's entitled Ideation. Today I'm just going to discuss the following topics. What is ideation? Inspiration from rival websites, information architecture, card sorting, user flow, ideal customer journey map, and I'll conclude with the tutorial tasks. So I'll begin with describing what is ideation. So you've now empathized with users and consequently defined the problem. And now you're going to commence ideating a solution for the problem. By definition, ideation is the process of forming solutions for your defined problem. But how? Ideas are not only formed through your knowledge of others' problems with the product, but with your knowledge of best practice. In other words, tried and tested ways to make better products. Over the next few weeks, your ideation will be enhanced with best practice to create an ideal customer journey, culminating in a working prototype to articulate your design vision. Just in case you thought it was forgotten, let's start to ideate by getting some inspiration from your usability test on rival sites and subsequent depth interviews. Inspiration comes from something that someone might have said, which gives you an idea for doing something better. In this current project, you are trying to make the Temu website better. Referring to your completed current customer journey, you have established a design goal, that is, what to do to make it better. In other words, you might have an example whereby it says, make it easy for me to establish who offers better value. Does the usability test on the rival site and the subsequent depth interview actually inspire a solution for the design goal? Inspiration leads to solutions. A best possible solution is known as an ideal. Did any of your usability test steps on the rival website reveal ideals? To discover ideals, document the steps of the rival website. In this illustration, I am using Levi's, which could be similar to your rival in your Temu project. Highlight what this ideal looks like, or sketch what it could look like if it was alluded to in a depth interview. Notice how I circle the ideal interaction for ideation purposes, where my user said, there's the men's link straight away. This approach will assist in the ideation of an ideal solution as it is based on primary research through observation. Save such notes for upload purposes, which I will discuss later. More than likely, your interviewees had difficulty finding content. However, they didn't articulate an ideal solution. To ideate in this instance, look at the product's current information architecture. Information architecture, or IA, refers to how designers organize content such as products, links, etc. in digital products. Good IA focuses on structuring and organizing content to make it easy for users to find, navigate, and understand. It's essentially the blueprint for how content is arranged and connected, ensuring users can intuitively find what they need. To redesign good IA, begin by considering the current product sitemap. By definition, a sitemap is a skeletal representation of a website's content. Designers deliberate over these to ideate intuitive product navigation. As an analogy, a physical sitemap can be clearly seen in major supermarkets, assisting customers to navigate aisles by affording each aisle with a sign defining what is contained within. Beneath the title sign Medicines, various medicines are on display for selection. A digital sitemap shows every link to other options content on the homepage. Consider these as the overhead title signs in a supermarket. In order to review your project's sitemap for inspiration purposes, begin by launching the site's homepage and reviewing the design goal in the current customer journey. In this example, my interviewee wished to buy a TV, hence they chose the TV link on the homepage. However, clicking this link opened a drop-down that was really confusing and overwhelming. Indeed, the interviewee said, "Where are the TV brands?" I can commence ideation to make this drop-down menu easier and more intuitive to navigate by using a technique known as card sorting. So what is card sorting? A card sorting study is a research method used to uncover users' mental models of the information architecture of your digital product. Users form their predictions about how a product should work based on their own experiences with other products. For example, my interviewee expected to see TV brands in the drop-down menu. I can therefore ideate a drop-down menu that better aligns with the user's mental model. As you can see in this sketch here, I've actually included brands. The outputting of the card sorting research method assists ideation as it helps your users to find information on your site more easily. So what does the method entail? In this other example, I'm going to conduct a card sort for a local store that offers delivery. When I access the store's menu page, there are many categories. Users are overwhelmed by the choice and the design layout. So what you do is you begin by listing all the key items available for delivery using post-its. Next, I cluster the post-its into themes or categories. Notice how I cluster sandwiches, wraps, etc. under a working title called rolls, etc. I keep clustering, trying to avoid a category that is miscellaneous. For example, crisps. It could be a separate category, but I note that in physical delis, crisps are sometimes placed close to the deli area and are often a common request. So notice how I've changed the original working title of rolls, etc. to deli menu. The design outcome derived from the card sort changes this complex navigation to something more clear, usable, and intuitive. Remember, the reason why I conducted the card sort was because my interviewee struggled to find content on the homepage. Use this technique if your interviewee had similar problems. Save any sketches and notes for upload purposes, which I will discuss later. Let's start to further ideate by analyzing your current customer journey map and creating an ideal user flow. What is user flow and how can it assist ideation? By definition, a user flow is the path taken by a user on a website or app to complete a task. As a physical analogy, consider a user flow as the path you take at a McDonald's drive-thru. The task is to get a large quarter pounder with cheese meal. The user flow entails queuing, ordering, queuing, paying, queuing, waiting at the hatch for the server to get your order, until you complete your task, which results in you receiving that brown paper bag. Similarly, digital user flow considers all steps when, for example, making an online reservation at a restaurant or purchasing a pair of shoes. To determine a website's user flow, start with the user's objective. In this example, I want to buy a pair of men's lace-up shoes, and I chart how a user reaches their goal in chronological order beginning on the homepage. Determine the next step, which is choosing men's shoes. Further filter your search by choosing lace-up shoes. And remember, your interviewee conducted the task, so refer to your notes, your customer journey. Here is an example of the user flow for the Birkenstock website example, and notice how user steps are described in rectangles and the human-computer interaction, in other words, things like they click on a link, etc., are described in circles. To ideate a better user flow, refer to your current customer journey, design goals, and sketch a better user flow. The improved flow should be much more expedient, possibly with less steps. For assessment purposes, photograph all your ideation notes at this point, and this will be known as Artifact 11. To summarize all ideas thus far, you will now create an ideal customer journey map to structure your thoughts to design a better user experience. Let's structure your ideas by analyzing your current customer journey map and turning it into an ideal. This clever task requires you to rewrite the steps of your current customer journey and turn the overall experience into an ideal. For example, my first user goal was to commence a Google search with the search term cheapest TVs Ireland. Referring to your current customer journey, create a new ideal customer journey map. Begin by concisely stating the first step. Thereafter, clearly state the user's goal. Next, state what the user would ideally do to fulfill the goal. Now consider how the user would behave. Obviously, they would be delighted in the knowledge that they are going to get the best value in this particular instance. Then consider where the scenario is taking place. In this example, the context is at home on the laptop. And finally, express the emotional state of the user at each point. Follow the same process for each step. It's important to realize that you might be adding or deleting steps to your original customer journey to make the user flow more pleasurable. And remember, you're adding ideation from the card sorting, the user flows, etc., that I previously discussed to create this ideal customer journey. For assessment purposes, photograph your ideal customer journey at this point. This has been known as Artifact 12, which brings us to your tutorial tasks. Ideate is shown and then create the client's ideal customer journey for prototyping purposes. So Artifact 11 should show your ideation sketches, any notes you might have taken, etc. And Artifact 12 should be the ideal customer journey map. And that concludes the lecture.